Okay, this is part 3. We're doing the story of Tisha B'Av. So the Romans were angry about this and placed a watch around their camp so that the Jews would not be able to steal anymore. So at that time, the Jews put on their weapons and went out to the eastern gate. They tore down the wall that Titus had built on it and sealed it up. Titus had built a wall facing that gate so that the terrorists could not attack suddenly without warning. A number of brave young Jewish men went to the breach in the eastern gate and climbed to the top of the Mount of Olives. There they found horses, mules, donkeys, and other animals. They killed the guards and brought back all the animals they could. They sounded blasts on the horn out of joy. The Romans heard the sound of the horn and saw the Jews leading their animals. They got up and chased the Jews in battle. The young Jewish men divided into two parties. One party led the animals, and the other party stood on the way facing the Romans, fighting them in a fierce battle. They defeated the Romans and brought the spoil to Jerusalem. The Jews fought more ferociously because they had to go out of Jerusalem due to the famine. They had no choice but to fight. It was either fight or die. The Romans merely fought. Even the humiliation at seeing the Jews lead their animals away did not cause them to take their lives in their hands and fight to the death as the Jews did. Therefore, the Romans did not fight as fiercely, and many Romans died in the battle. The Jews led the sheep and animals, which they captured from the Romans, and fled to the city. The Romans ran after them but could not catch them. They could only see that the spoils were being brought to Jerusalem. These young Jewish men were mightier than the Romans and continuously beat them. They pursued them until they came close to Titus's camp. When all the nation saw the power of these young men and their stubbornness, chasing the Romans into the great camp, they stood up to encounter the young Jewish men, to kill them or to capture them. When the young men saw such a huge group of people against them, they fled to Jerusalem. The troops of those many nations chased them but did not catch them, nor even reach them. They captured one boy alive and brought him to Titus. The name of the man who captured the Jewish boy was Tyrannus. The soldiers of the Romans took pride in their capture, and they praised Tyrannus. He was very great in the eyes of Titus and his generals. Titus took the Jewish boy and raised him up, dressed him, and honored him. He became a servant to Joseph the priest, or Josephus, who was Titus's aide. One of the Jewish men, Josephus was a traitor. Right. So one of the young Jewish men was a brother of the boy who was captured by Tyrannus, a lowly, short, ugly man by the name of Yochanan. He saw that Tyrannus had captured his brother alive. He was very angry and stood near the grave of Yochanan the high priest outside the city, opposite the Roman camp. He called out to Titus and his entire camp, "Who is a mighty warrior among you? Let him come and approach me. I will keep my word. I will not leave here until he comes to me, and I will fight with him. Let it be known today who is stronger, the Romans or the Jews." The man was disgusting in the eyes of the Romans, and they had no respect for him. But they were also afraid to come to him. They said, "If we kill him, it will not be considered any great heroism. He is not a hero, he is a nothing. But if he kills one of us, it will be a great humiliation." Yochanan said to the Romans, "What is the strength of the Romans wherever they fight? You have fled from us. We have beaten you as if you were our maids. You turn around and run from us. Now, if you consider yourself to be anything without all your allies who are gathering around you to add to your numbers, let's see what you can do. You are our food. We will eat you with our swords. We are destroying each other through our evil, that we only have a few. Through our evil, so we only have a few. But you, what are you? What is your strength? You are like nothing in our eyes. Who among you are mighty warriors who have the audacity to come and fight with me? I am the lowliest of all the Jews. Choose your best man, your most powerful warrior among the Romans. Let us know who has the strength, ourselves or you." One of Titus's warriors by the name of Ponus volunteered. He was also known as Tyrannus, the man who had captured Jonathan's brother alive and brought him to Titus. So Tyrannus or Ponus approached Jonathan, and Jonathan attacked suddenly and killed him. This was a great victory for the Jews and a great humiliation for the Romans. When Jonathan killed Tyrannus, the Jews changed his name to Jehonatan as a sign of greatness and honor. They gave him the staff of leadership. However, when Jonathan defeated Ponus, he did not thank God. Rather, he trusted in his own strength and prided himself on it. He danced in front of the Romans to humiliate them and admonish them. Send another warrior to me, he said. I will kill him too. I will show you my strength. He was dancing in front of them when a Roman soldier by the name of Polion suddenly shot an arrow at him and killed him. The Romans rejoiced when they killed their enemy. They had prevented him from enjoying his victory. After a while, the Jews realized that the wall, the temple courtyard, and the 3 walls of the city had been breached. They knew that they had no hope of escaping from the Romans. They planned together what to do. On the side of the temple, there was a higher tower built by Solomon. The king, during the Second Commonwealth, made it higher with cedar wood, and covered it with pine. The Jews went and coated the wood with pitch, tar, and sulfur. They gave it a very heavy coating. The Romans attacked the Jews in the temple. The Jews ran from the Romans who pursued them into the tower. The Jews escaped through another exit of the tower while the Romans climbed to its roof. The other Romans who had chased them brought ladders and scaled the tower from the outside. The Romans were all over the wall of the tower on its roof. The Romans were happy at their victory, and they sounded the victory trumpets. We have captured the tower, they shouted. The Jews have no place to escape. The Romans were celebrating their capture of the tower, filling all its rooms and covering its roof. One of the Jewish boys volunteered to go to the gate of the tower at night and lock it from the outside. He coated the walls with pitch and set them on fire. All the walls of the tower caught fire, and all the Romans in the tower were burned alive. The Jews ran to the tower, and the fire was burning all around, up to the sky. When the Romans saw the fire, they went to the gate, and they saw that it was also on fire. They climbed the roof, and the fire was all around them. There was no place to escape because there was a great fire all around the tower. The Jews were still standing outside with their weapons, not allowing any of the Romans to escape. At least 22,000 Roman legionnaires were killed by this fire. Titus heard the screams of the burning soldiers, and he and his soldiers ran to help them. By the time they came, the fire was burning so fiercely on all sides that he could do nothing to save them. Titus and all his men wept. When the men on top of the roof of the tower saw their leader, Titus, standing and weeping, separated from them by the fire, they jumped down from the roof toward Titus to die in his presence. They said, "Let us die in front of Titus, so he will know who we are." The roof of the tower was high, and there was no other way down. The fire burned all around, burning the wood. There was no way to escape. The Jewish warriors who stood facing the gate of the tower would attack and kill any man who tried to climb down from the roof or out of the gate. The Jews did this to all the Romans until they killed them. Inside the conflagration, there was a Roman from the royal family by the name of Longinus. The Jews called him mockingly, "Run to us, and you will live." He tried to leave through one of the gates of the tower, but they would not let him go. He was afraid that the Jews would not let him live. He realized that the Jews would not have pity on him or any others who came out to them. He therefore drew his sword before their eyes and fell on it, committing suicide. Another man in the conflagration was a great Roman by the name of Artorios. He looked down, and in front of Titus stood his closest friend at a distance outside the tower. The name of the man was Lucius, or Luke. So Artorius called down from the roof and said, "My brother, Luke, my dear friend, strengthen yourself and stand. I will jump on you. Try to catch me. Then I will not die when I fall. If you do that, I will give you all my possessions. If I live and you die, your sons will be my heirs." Luke ran out of love that he had for Artorios and stood under the tower, right under the place where Artorios was standing. Artorios jumped, and he fell on him from the tower roof. When he fell on him, both of them died. Titus gave orders and wrote their oath and the covenant they had made before their death in blood on a sword, so that it would be a eulogy for the Romans. So Titus also gave orders that the story of their brotherhood and love would be written in the chronicles of the Roman Empire to show how great the love between the Romans could be. It would be a sign that the Romans should take vengeance for the Jewish trickery. The fire continued to burn, consuming the entire tower as far as the house of Hezekiah, the king of Judah, which was close to the holy temple. The Romans fled from the temple and the city and returned to their camps. Their numbers had decreased, and the men of Jerusalem were able to defeat them. The Romans camped around Jerusalem. They said, "We will not be able to conquer Jerusalem with the sword, but only with famine." They therefore laid siege to Jerusalem, knowing full well that there was no food in Jerusalem. So in Jerusalem there was a woman from an aristocratic family by the name of Miriam of Transjordan. She was very wealthy. When the war became fierce in the time of Vespasian, she went to Jerusalem along with many of the people. So they sought refuge there. So she brought along with her slaves and her wealth, all her wealth. When the famine became severe in Jerusalem, the terrorists went from house to house to find food. They came to the house of this woman and took all the food, not leaving her anything to eat. Now when the famine became worse, she wanted to die. The woman went around picking up pieces of straw and stubble to eat. She searched for dung to provide her with nourishment, but she couldn't find any. She had one son. When she saw that the famine was so great and the hunger had reached her belly, all her mother love turned to hate. She heard her son cry for bread, but there was none to give him. And she said to him, "What should I do to my son? God's anger burns around Jerusalem. On all sides there is a famine. Outside there is a sword, and inside there is fear. In the city the terrorists are destroying us, and outside the city your enemies want to make an end to us. In the city there is fire, destruction, famine, and pestilence. I have nothing I can give you, my son. My dear son, if I die of starvation, who will help you? You're still a little child. I hoped that you would grow and be a pleasure to me in my old age. You would give me food and drink and dress me. When I died, you would bury me in honor. If you died before me in a good way, I would bury you with honor and mourning, as only a mother can do for the child of her womb. But now, my son, the joy of my eyes, you are like a dead person to me. I have no food to feed you. The famine is terrible. The enemies are powerful inside and out. If you die of starvation, there is no place to bury you in honor as I would like to. Therefore I have said, let your grave be in my belly. I do not want you to die and be eaten by the dogs of the streets. Let me be your grave, and you will be my food and nourishment. You have an obligation to honor me and to feed me. If you had lived and grown up, you would have nourished me. Now let me eat your flesh, and you will nourish me in that manner. Let me take you before the famine does. Let me have you before your body decays. You will be my food and nourishment. You will repay to me all that I have given you. You have come from me, and now you will return to me. I will return you to the chamber where you have got your soul. You are my only son, the beloved of my eyes. I loved you all my life, with all my might. Now you will be food for your mother. Let your deed be a humiliation to the terrorists who took our food. Now, my son, listen to your mother. Nourish me, give me life, be my food. Go to your end. Let me be the one to take your life, and your portion will be in paradise. You will be my food and nourishment into the terrorist. It will be a humiliation. People will say, because of the terrorist acts, a mother killed her child and ate him. When she finished speaking to her son, she took her little boy in her hands, very gently, almost lovingly. She slit his throat and watched his life's blood pulsate out of him. Her face turned away as she cut him up. She took her child's body and roasted the flesh on the fire. With love she cooked it and ate it. What she could not eat she preserved. She began to smell flesh in the street. This was a fragrance that they had not experienced for a long time. And one said to the other, "Is it true? Could it be that we're smelling roasted meat?" Finally, the terrorist leaders became aware of the odor, and they followed it. They came to the woman's house in anger and said to her, "What is this? How is it that you are living and eating while we are dying of starvation?" "Don't be angry," she said to them. "I have also saved you a portion. Sit down, and I will prepare a fine meal for you. It is the best meal." She set the table and brought them the cooked flesh of the child and said to them, "Eat. Here is my child's hand. Here is his foot. Here are the other parts. Don't think it's another woman's child. It's my only son. You knew him. I gave birth to him, and I ate him. I also kept a portion for you." With that, the woman began weeping. She said, my son, how sweet you were to me when you were alive, and now that you are dead, you're sweeter than honey. Your flesh has nourished me in this famine, and I can live for a while. I have food in my old age, and you have also saved me from the anger of these murderous terrorists who came to me with fierce anger when they smelled our flesh. And now I will call to you, and I will call to your people who are... And now I will call to your people who are sitting at my table, and I will prepare them a meal with your flesh. The woman said to the terrorist, "Eat, be satisfied. Why are you afraid to eat? This is food that I am giving you. I made a good meal of it. Why don't you eat it? Why don't you enjoy the flesh of my son? Eat it. You'll see that it's sweeter than honey. It's very tasty. I cooked it the best way possible. Do you have pity on him more than his own mother? Do you refuse to eat his flesh, my son? Of my son. I ate it. It's a humiliation for you. Do I then have more courage than you? I have prepared a nice table, and I cooked it to perfection, as it is fitting for great soldiers like you. Why don't you eat it? It's a good meal. It's a meal I prepared for you. You asked me to prepare a table and to set down this meal. If anyone should have pity on my son, it should be me. Why do you have pity on him now? What did I do? You're the one who robbed my house. You did not leave anything for me and my son to eat. You demanded that I serve you this portion. You made me have this meal because of the famine. So now why don't you eat it? You helped me do it. You're responsible, you and I. When the Jews heard about this, they mourned bitterly. Even the leaders of the terrorists were moved by this great tragedy. People wanted to die because they were so confused by the famine. Many people left the city at night and went to the Roman camp. They told Titus the story about the woman and her son. When Titus heard it, he wept and considered it a very, very evil sign. One of the gates of the temple was closed. It was covered with silver. The Romans came and set the gate afire. The wood of the door burned, and the silver fell to the ground, opening the gate. When they opened the gate, they saw the path leading to the Holy of Holies. The next day, the Romans came and set the Holy of Holies on fire on all sides. They took beams and placed them over the golden gate of the Holy of Holies and set them afire. The gold became hot and burned the wood of the doors so that they fell into the ground. The Holy of Holies was then opened so that all could see it. This occurred on the 9th day of the 5th month, Tisha B'Av, the same day that the Holy of Holies was opened in the time of the Babylonians. When the Romans opened the gate of the Holy of Holies and captured it, they sounded a triumphant blast on the horns. The Holy of Holies burned on all sides. The fire continued to burn in the Holy of Holies. When the leaders of the terrorists, along with their people, saw that the Holy of Holies had burned, they burned the rest of the temple. They also burned all the houses in Jerusalem, which were filled with riches and beautiful objects. Every mansion in Jerusalem was burned. They burned every house where they knew there was wealth, honor, or food, so that it would not fall into the hands of the Romans. When they burned the rest of the temple, they said, "Once the Holy of Holies has been burned, what is life? Why should the rest of the building survive?" The Romans put out the fire and placed their idolatrous god in the temple. They offered sacrifices, uttering blasphemy towards the Jews in their Torah in front of their idols. At that time, a Jew prophesied falsely. He told the rest of the surviving terrorists in Jerusalem, "Be strong and brave. Rise with your weapons. Now the temple will be built by itself, not by the hand of man. The God of Israel will thus show the Romans his strength. This will be their punishment for boasting about defeating the Jews. Now, if you are brave and battle the Romans with all your strength, the temple will be built by itself today." The terrorists attacked the Romans and killed many of them. But many of the terrorists were also killed. The Romans killed the common people like sheep. Originally, they had pity on them, but now there was no longer any pity. There was the punishment for listening to the false prophet and not paying attention to the great miracles that had happened in Jerusalem. These were very great wonders, portents. A year before Vespasian came to Jerusalem, right over the temple, a comet appeared. It had the form of a man holding a drawn sword in his hand. This sign appeared on the holiday of Passover. All that night the temple shone as if it were day. This went on all 7 days of Passover. All the sages of Israel knew that it was an evil sign, but the rest of the people said it was a good sign at that time. Also in those days they brought a calf for a burnt offering. When they threw it to the ground to slaughter it, it gave birth to a sheep. People said this was also an omen. Another omen appeared on the eastern gate, which was a beautiful, huge gate. It took 20 men to open it and 20 men to close it. The sound of the door turning on its hinges could be heard from a long distance. In those days, the gates opened by itself and people could not close it. It took a huge number of people to close the gate. The sages of Israel and the priests also said that this was an evil omen. But the ignorant people said it was a good omen. After this, they saw an image like the face of a man over the Holy of Holies all night. It was a fearsome image of a man, so handsome that never before had the like been seen. Also in those days, the people saw a vision of a huge army with war chariots flying in the sky. They came over Jerusalem and the entire territory of Judah. All of them had fiery horses and riders. Around the same time on the festival of Shavuot, the Kohen, the priest in the temple, heard the sound of people walking. It sounded like a huge crowd walking around the temple. They heard a loud and fearsome voice calling out and saying, "Go, let us leave the temple, let us flee." The Jewish sages all said that this was an evil omen, but again, all the other people thought it was a good omen. 4 years before these signs occurred, there was an ignorant farmer in Jerusalem by the name of Yehoshua, the son of Hananiah. On the festival of Sukkot, he called out in a loud voice, "A voice from the east, a voice from the west, a voice from the 4 directions, a voice on Jerusalem, a voice on the temple, a voice on the bridegroom, a voice on the bride, a voice on all the people." The people of the city hated him and said, "Why are you screaming like this?" But the city's procurator gave orders that no one should say anything to this man. They saw that he was mad. The man then went out and cried, "Woe is to Jerusalem, woe is to its temple, woe is to its sanctuary until the day of war." Then when the first war began, he began to cry out again. Then a stone from a catapult hit him on his head and killed him. In those days, writing was found on a rock from ancient times. It said, When the building of the temple is complete, and it is perfectly square, then it will be destroyed. When Antonina was captured and destroyed by the Romans, that's the tower, part of the temple was damaged. The Jews repaired the breach. When they finished, the temple was an exact square. They did not remember the words of that writ that they had found. They also found written on the wall of the Holy of Holies, quote, "When the building is square, then a king will rule over Israel. He will rule and dominate the entire world." Many people thought that this was speaking about a Jewish king, but the priest said that it was speaking about a Roman emperor. When the Romans came to the temple, the Jews ran to Mount Zion. The Romans placed their idols in the temple and offered sacrifices and libations praising their gods. They uttered blasphemy and denigrated Israel and its God. Around that time, a young boy went to the Romans. He was a Cohen from Mount Zion. He said to the leader of the Romans near the temple, "Give me some water to drink." The captain had pity on the boy and gave orders to give him water. The boy took the cup of water and drank. The rest he took with him and fled. He went to the Cohen priest and gave them the water to drink. The captain made believe that he was chasing the boy, but he did not want to capture him because he was happy with what he did. He let him go, and the boy escaped. When the Romans made libations before Titus, there were some kings who were captured at the temple. They begged Titus for mercy that he spare them and not kill them. Titus said to them, "Why should you be chosen to live? Why should you not die with your brothers who died before the God of the temple and were burned with it?" Titus then gave orders that they be attacked and killed. There was a man named Doeg ben Yosef who died and left a beautiful young child. Every year, Doeg used to weigh him. He would calculate how much weight his son had gained and give that amount of gold to the temple. When the famine became severe and his mother took him and slaughtered him and ate him. When the famine became so great, Titus gave orders to bring the siege machinery to break down the new wall. Many of the military leaders surrendered to Titus, and he made them heads over his army. When Titus saw that they came to make peace, he gave orders to leave them alone and not harm them. When the heads of the remaining army saw that Titus's soldiers were not doing anything to them, they fell on them suddenly and killed all of them by the sword. When Titus saw what the Jews did to his soldiers, he attacked them in full strength and killed many of them. The rest fled to Mount Zion. The next day, the Romans entered the temple. That day was Tisha B'Av, which occurred on a Sunday. They were offering sacrifices, and the Cohen priests were singing the songs as they did each day when they sang the song of the day. On that day, they were singing a psalm. "O God of vengeance is God." Psalm 94:1. Although this psalm is usually said on a Wednesday, God caused them to say it as a eulogy for the catastrophe that was about to occur. They were not able to complete this psalm. "May God our Lord destroy them." Psalm 94:23. When the foe entered, if they had said, "May God destroy them," the enemy would not have been able to overpower them. This is because the Jews' power was that they knew how to bind the angels by an oath that the angels would not let the Romans capture the city. If they had ended this psalm through the names of the angels found in it, especially in the word, "May God destroy them," Yatzmi them, they would have been able to bring down angels and destroy the Romans. But God had decreed that it not be so, and he caused the Romans to come before they could complete the psalm. The enemy was able to overpower the Jews and enter the Holy of Holies. They took wood and set it on fire until the gold and silver melted, and they entered with great ferocity. They took their idolatrous god and placed it in the temple, and they began to sing and offer sacrifices to their god. Titus entered the temple and uttered blasphemy against God. He took a harlot and entered the Holy of Holies, spread out a Torah scroll, and committed a sin on it. He stabbed the curtain of the Holy of Holies with his sword. God made a miracle, and the curtain began to bleed. This was a sign of how difficult the destruction of the temple was for God. Titus thought that he had killed the Jewish God. There were 480 synagogues in Jerusalem. In each synagogue, there was a special place where they would teach young children the Bible. There were other sections in the synagogues where they would teach Mishnah and Talmud. There was a special study hall where Rabbi Yochanan would teach the mysteries of the Torah and describe God's greatness. All of these were destroyed. Titus took the curtain and shaped it into a sack and put all the vessels of the temple in it. He brought it home in a ship so he could boast of it in his city. He entered the ship and took some of his captives with it. Many of the captives were killed in horrible ways. Those brought back to Rome were also killed. Some were thrown to the lions and eaten alive, and others were killed in other terrible ways. While Titus was on the sea, a storm arose that threatened to sink the boat. Titus said, "It seems that the Jewish God only has power in the sea." He drowned Pharaoh in the sea and did the same to Sisera. Now he wishes to drown me in the sea too. If he wants to show his strength, let him come up on dry land and fight with me there. 600 of Pharaoh's chariots were drowned in the sea, and 900 of Sisera's. Because there was some sort of prophecy about 1.5 times what happened to Pharaoh would be given back to the sea, because the sea gave up the chariots on the shore so that the Israelites could see their enemies. So a heavenly voice said, "Fiend, son of a fiend, I have a tiny creature, a gnat. Go up on dry land and fight against the gnat." When Titus went on dry land, a gnat entered into his nose. It attacked his brain for 7 years. One day he passed by a blacksmith's shop, and the banging made the gnat quiet down. He thought he had found a remedy for his sickness. Every day he brought the blacksmith to hammer in his presence. He would pay a Gentile blacksmith, but not a Jewish blacksmith. He said, "For the Jew, it is enough that he sees the vengeance against his enemy." And the sages said that when Titus died, they opened his brain and they found the gnat the size of a large dove. Titus gave orders that after he died, he should burn his body and scatter the ashes over the 7 seas so that the Jewish God would not be able to find him and punish him. When Israel was exiled, the nations could not believe that Jerusalem was destroyed and Israel had been sent into exile. They said to each other, "The God of this nation has done many miracles. He took them out of Egypt and drowned Pharaoh and his armies in the sea. He did the same to Sisera." It is thus written, "And they will praise his holy name, and they will say to them, they are God's people, and he brought them out of his land." Ezekiel 36:20. God mourned that he had caused the destruction of his temple. The nations were saying that the Israelites were God's people and he did miracles to them. Why did they have to leave the land? Obviously, at this time, he did not have the power to save them. This is a desecration of God's name. Titus brought all the vessels to Rome. He brought with him the tribes of Judah and Benjamin. He made a huge, triumphant arch to show his strength because he had been successful in conquering Israel and was therefore more powerful than all the nations. On this arch, he made the form of all the vessels of the temple as well as the pictures of men in chains carrying these vessels. Similarly, when he passed through the city of Salonika, he made his image on a stone as he did in Rome. However, there, he did not make pictures of the temple vessels. All the stones and foundations of the temple in Jerusalem were not burned or destroyed. They were all hidden away. Shadim brought other stones which were burned so as to fool Titus. Even though the Romans thought they were destroying the temple, this was merely an illusion. Actually, everything in the temple was hidden. When God rebuilds the temple, he will use the same stones and foundations that were there originally. Nothing will be missing. And there's a legend that the one synagogue, I think is it the synagogue in Prague, where it was built overnight, and they say that the angels brought stones from the temple to build it, which is also interesting because historically we know that that one of the main legions that was there to capture Jerusalem was restationed where today Czechoslovakia, well, it's not the Czech Republic, Slovak Republic is today. And that many of the Slavs were Jewish slaves. So they took slaves from Jerusalem with them. So there was a lot of people, and this goes back to the idea of the Nonic language, which was the common language before Yiddish, and that in that area of Europe that the Jews spoke. But it's barely, there's not much record of it anymore. But it's spelled Nonic, Knaa, Nik or something like that. But instead of Canaanite, it's like with a K, right? It's like Canaan, but with a K. Nonic is how they pronounce that. There's not a whole lot of information on that language, but that's there. But anyway, the exile. Israel was exiled 4 times. The first time was when Sennacherib came and exiled the tribes of Reuven, Gad, and the half-tribe of Manasseh. He brought them to Lachlach, Chabar, and Nahare Gozan in the cities of Medea. Then he came a second time and exiled all Israel in the cities of Samaria or Shomron and brought them to the same places. The third exile was when he came and exiled the tribes of Ephraim and Manasseh. Then Nebuchadnezzar exiled 18,000 members of the tribes of Judah and Benjamin and brought them to Babylon. Then he came a second time and exiled 4,000 from the tribe of Judah and 50,000 from the tribe of Benjamin and 7,000 from the other tribes. Then Nebuzaradan came and destroyed the temple and killed 4 million Jews in addition to those he had killed in order to quiet the blood of Zechariah. He exiled 832,000 of the leaders of Judah and Benjamin and left only 6,000 people in Jerusalem. As a leader, he placed over them Gedaliah ben Ahikam. He also exiled the descendants of Moshe and the descendants of Yonadah ben Rachav, who were over 600,000 people. I think that's the Druze, what we would call today the Druze. Yonadah ben Rachav, his descendants. And if you actually run these numbers of 832,000 people, and you project that out with just a modest population growth, it will blow your mind. Blow your mind. He brought them to the rivers of Babylon. God transported them beyond the river of Sambation. It is written in the books by people who heard from the Gentiles who live there that until this day there is a great kingdom there. They were exiled from the places of the rivers of Gozan and Sambation because they did not study the Torah. Therefore, they were all exiled to a single place. However, since the other tribes had people who would teach Torah, God scattered them to the four corners of the earth so that they would continue studying Torah. Hashem wants Torah to be all over the earth, right? One group returned and were brought behind the mountains of darkness. One group... So I think the mountains of darkness are in Africa. One group Titus exiled and brought to Rome and its suburbs. They were scattered throughout the world. Another group was exiled by Alexander the Great and kept behind the mountains with magic powers. They think they are surrounded by many enemies and are now afraid to leave. When the Messiah comes, all the walls and barriers will be broken down, as it is written, "The stairs shall fall, and every wall shall return to the earth." Ezekiel 38:20. Thus, there are 4 places to which the Israelites were exiled. All of them are alluded to in the verse. Quote, "Say to the prisoners, go out, and to those who are in darkness, reveal yourselves. Eat along the way, and let every hill be your pasture." Isaiah 49, verse 9. Say to the prisoners, go out. This refers to those who are on the other side of the Sambation River. And those in darkness, reveal yourselves. This refers to those behind the mountains of darkness and those sealed in by Alexander the Great. Quote, "Eat along the way." This is speaking about those scattered unto the four corners of the earth. God bound the Israelites by an oath that they not make a mass migration to the Holy Land, set up a government, nor build Jerusalem in its walls. He also bound the Israelites that they not rebel against the kingdoms, nor depend on their strength. He also bound them by an oath that they should not urge God in any unusual manner to bring the Messiah. God also bound the Israelites by an oath that they not reveal the mysteries of the Torah or the means of calculating the calendar to the world. God bound the Gentiles by an oath that they not be overly harsh to the Israelites. If the world is too harsh to the Israelites, God will send the Messiah before it's his time. God said, "I bound you by an oath. If you listen to my oath, good. If not, your flesh will be food for the beast, such as harts and deer." God has pity on us even when he is angry. He strikes with one hand and heals with the other. He exiles us in the month of Av, which is a summer month. If he had exiled us in the winter during the time of cold and rain, many people would have died along the way. They did not have adequate clothing and were bound in chains. It was also a great act of mercy that God exiled them in the summer, in the month of Av, when it is warm. When they lay on the fields, they were not harmed. It was also an act of mercy because in the month of Av, there was fruit available, such as pomegranates and grapes. God also did an act of mercy that he put in it Titus's mind not to bring the Israelites to the desert because it was an uncultivated area and they would die of starvation. Rather, he brought them to the inhabited territory so that wherever they went, they found a city and had something to eat and drink. The first temple was destroyed because of the 3 cardinal sins: idolatry, sexual crimes, and bloodshed. The second temple, however, was destroyed because of unwarranted hatred, baseless hatred. Outside, people would appear to be good friends, but inside there was great hatred and enmity. Even though the people studied much Torah and did many deeds of kindness, this did not help them, as we saw in the story of Kamsa and Bar Kamsa. Although Bar Kamsa begged that he not be rejected from the meal, he was thrown out because of great hatred. As a result, he denounced the Jews to the Roman emperor, caused the temple to be destroyed. From here, our sages learned that unwarranted hatred outweighs the three cardinal sins. The first temple was destroyed because of the three cardinal sins, while the second was destroyed because of the sin of baseless hatred, causeless hatred. The Book of Lamentations, which is a eulogy for the destruction of the first temple, begins with the words, "How does the city sit alone?" which in Hebrew is Echa Yashva Badad Ha'ir. The initial letters of this spell out Epa, meaning hatred. This is teaching us that the temple was destroyed because of hatred. If a person has hatred in his heart, he is destroyed in both this world and the next. We thus find that the people of Sodom were destroyed only because of the hatred in their hearts. The fifth thing that happened on Tisha B'Av was the complete destruction of Jerusalem. Usually, when a kingdom captures a capital city of another land, it is not destroyed down to its foundation. But Jerusalem was plowed over like a field until nothing remained. Some say that Tinius Rufus plowed over Jerusalem and its suburbs because of his jealousy. He was jealous that a single city could be so holy. The Talmud relates that Rabban Gamliel, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, Rabbi Yehoshua, and Rabbi Akiva were traveling together. They heard the tumult of the city of Babylon from a distance of 120 miles. The other rabbis began to weep, but Rabbi Akiva laughed. Akiva, they said, "Why are you laughing?" "Why are you weeping?" he replied. "These pagans bow down to statues and burn incense to idols. They live securely with prosperity and tranquility, but the house, the temple, that is in the footstool of our God has been burned with fire. Why should we not weep?" "But this is exactly why I am laughing," he said. "If those who violate his will have it good, those who do his will certainly have it good in the end." Another time, these same rabbis were traveling to Jerusalem. When they came to Mount Scopius, or Hatzophim, they tore their garments in mourning. When they came to the Temple Mount, they saw a fox crawl out of the place of the Holy of Holies. The other rabbis began to weep, but there again Rabbi Akiva laughed. "Akiva," they said, "why are you laughing?" "Why are you weeping?" he says. They replied, "Regarding the Holy of Holies, our Torah says, an unauthorized person who approaches shall be put to death." Numbers 151. Now we have seen the fulfillment of the verse, "On Mount Zion, which is desolate, foxes walk." Lamentations 5:18. Shall we not cry? He said to them, "This is precisely the reason I am laughing. It is written, I am giving you trustworthy witnesses, Uriah the priest and Zechariah the son of Iberachiah." Isaiah 8:2. What does Uriah have to do with Zechariah? Uriah was the first temple, while Zechariah was the second temple. However, the Torah relates the prophecy of Zechariah to the prophecy of Uriah. Regarding Uriah, it is written, "Therefore, for your sake, Zion shall be plowed as a field. Jerusalem shall be heaps, and the Temple Mount shall be like a forest altar." Micha 3:12. In Zechariah, it is written, "Old men and women will once again sit in the streets of Jerusalem." Zechariah 8:4. Until Uriah's prophecy was fulfilled, I was afraid that Zechariah's prophecy would not be fulfilled. However, now that Uriah's prophecy has been fulfilled, I know for certain that Zechariah's prophecy will also come true. The other rabbis then said to him, "Akiva, you have comforted us. Akiva, you have comforted us." The fourth fast. Therefore, the sages of that generation legislated that these 2 days, the 17th of Tammuz and the 9th of Av, Tisha B'Av, be declared fast days. They also declared that the day after Rosh Hashanah and the 10th of Tevet be fast, Asar B'Tevet be fast days. All these fast days are alluded to in the verse. Quote, "This is what God said. The fast of the 4th month, the fast of the 5th month, the fast of the 7th month, and the fast of the 10th month should be for the house of Israel a time of happiness and rejoicing." Zechariah 8:19. The prophet asked God when the second temple was about to be built, would the Jews continue to fast and weep on those days? God replied that when the temple was built, these would become days of rejoicing. And the scripture speaks of 4 fasts. They are the fast of the 4th month, which is the 17th of Tammuz. Tammuz is the 4th month of the year, counting from Nisan. Okay, so the fast of the 5th month, which is Tisha B'Av, the 9th of Av. The fast of the 7th month, which is Zom Gedalia, occurring on the 3rd of Tishrei. And finally, the fast of the 10th month, which is the 10th of Tevet, or Asar B'Tevet, when the temple is rebuilt. All of these will once again become days of joy. The reason that we make a fast day after Rosh Hashanah is because on Rosh Hashanah, Yishmael ben Netaniah killed Gedaliah ben Ahikam. When Nebuchadnezzar exiled Jerusalem, he left a number of men in Jerusalem and put Gedaliah ben Ahikam in charge of them. When the wicked people, including Yishmael ben Netaniah and his cohorts, heard that Nebuchadnezzar had appointed Gedaliah ben Ahikam as their leader, they came to Gedaliah, and he swore to them that they should not fear Nebuchadnezzar, and they would live in peace. Then Yochanan ben Karach and all the leaders came and said to Gedaliah, "The king of Ammon sent Yishmael ben Netaniah to kill you." Gedaliah did not believe them. Yochanan said to Gedaliah, "Kill Yishmael." Gedaliah said, "I will not do anything. You are speaking falsely." Yishmael ben Netaniah and his men then killed Gedaliah ben Ahikam and his men, and all his men. They then fled to Egypt out of fear of Nebuchadnezzar, since this was considered rebellion against him. 2 Kings 25, 23 to 26, and Jeremiah 40 verse 13 to 41 verse 15. This is why our sages legislated a fast on the day after Rosh Hashanah and made it the same as the other fasts. It teaches that the death of the righteous is equal to the destruction of the holy temple. It is true that if we fasted for the death of all the righteous, we would have to fast every single day. However, this tragedy occurred on Rosh Hashanah. Instead of repenting for the sins that we have done, this person committed murder and caused greater woes for Israel. We could have had peace as long as Gedaliah was alive, since Nebuchadnezzar promised him that he would let him live in peace. This evil came about because of our sins. Therefore, our sages legislated that we fast on this day and make it the same as the other fast, to teach that the death of the righteous is like the destruction of the temple. Since some say that the death of the righteous is the same to God as the 98 curses mentioned in the portion of Ki Tavo, Deuteronomy 28, 15 to 68, and also more than the destruction of the temple. In the admonishment in the portion of Ki Tavo, it says, God will make your punishment as an astounding thing, Deuteronomy 28:59. This is a single astounding thing. People will be astounded that God sent such terrible punishments against us. However, when the temple was destroyed, the Torah says, quote, they fell with astounding things, Lamentations 1:9. Here it is not one astounding thing, but the plural, things. Concerning the death of the righteous, it is written that God said, behold, I will increase astounding things against his people and make astounding things astounding, Isaiah 29:14. Here the scripture mentions three astounding things, Pelaim. This teaches that the death of the righteous equals the two astounding things mentioned with the destruction. This teaches that the death of the righteous equals two astounding things mentioned in the destruction of the temple, as well as the astounding thing in Deuteronomy. Therefore, the scripture mentions the word astounding 3 times in this verse. The fast of the 10th of Tevet was decreed because on this day Nebuchadnezzar laid siege to Jerusalem and kept up the siege until he had conquered the city.